Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell, because once you hear this story, you won't sleep tonight. The line between love, obsession, and violence is thinner than you think. It was a quiet August night in a suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where the most shocking thing usually was a lawn left uncut. But that night, the calm shattered. Flames ripped through a modest two-story house, the orange glow reflecting off the windows of neighboring homes. Smoke curled into the sky like a warning signal, drawing the attention of dozens of onlookers who had no idea that inside, tragedy had already struck. By the time firefighters forced their way in, it was too late. Bodies had been found, a young woman and 3 children, lifeless, their lives stolen in an instant. Detective Marcus Hayes arrived on the scene moments later, his mind racing, even as his boots crunched through broken glass and scorched debris. He'd seen tragedies before, but something about this one gnawed at him. The victims weren't strangers, they were family. Bryony Gaworth, just 29, a vibrant woman with a laugh that could light up a room, lay dead alongside her nieces and nephew, ages 9, 5, and just over 1 year old. Her sister, Antonia, the woman connected to the suspected arsonist, was found outside the house, hysterical and in shock, trembling as she tried to grasp the magnitude of what had just happened. The suspect, authorities would soon confirm, was Shiraz Ali, a man whose past relationship with Antonia had ended months earlier, leaving behind a storm of jealousy and obsession that until now had been simmering silently. Neighbors described him as quiet, almost invisible, yet something about his demeanor unsettled those who had interacted with him. Police began piecing together the timeline. Ali had been seen driving past the home repeatedly in the days leading up to the fire. Some neighbors recalled strange late-night visits, a silhouette loitering just out of sight. As the investigation unfolded, detectives found subtle but chilling evidence of premeditation. Gasoline containers, a makeshift ignition device, and a hastily scrawled note tucked behind a photo frame. Its words, barely legible in the smoke-stained paper, hinted at rage, revenge, and a plan that had been carefully executed. Every clue seemed to deepen the mystery rather than unravel it. Why target Bryony and her children? And why not Antonia, the ex-girlfriend, whose relationship with Ali had ended acrimoniously? Meanwhile, forensic teams scoured the charred remains for answers. Fingerprints, DNA, and fragments of clothing were cataloged meticulously, each one a piece of a puzzle that no one could yet see fully. Investigators noticed something odd. The basement window had been forced open, though nothing inside appeared stolen. It was almost as if the fire itself was meant to be the weapon, the message, the punishment. But the real shock came when police examined the surveillance footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera. A figure, dark and deliberate, approached the house moments before the blaze. At first, it was impossible to tell who it was. Then, in the grainy glow of the streetlight, they noticed a glint. A key, a master key perhaps, used to unlock the house silently. The implication was staggering. Someone close, someone who knew the family's routines, had orchestrated this. And when investigators opened the locked basement door, what they found changed everything. Detective Marcus Hayes couldn't shake the image of the basement. Charred, blackened, smelling of smoke and something far more sinister. A meticulous effort to destroy evidence. Yet somehow, a trace remained. Among the debris, a small, scorched notebook survived. Its edges curled, but its contents legible. Inside were scribbled names, dates, and cryptic messages, a window into the mind of someone who had been planning this act long before the fire. The investigation rapidly expanded. Police interviewed neighbors, friends, and colleagues. Everyone seemed to know Ali, yet no one had suspected the darkness he harbored. He had always been quiet, polite even, but there were whispers of possessiveness and bursts of anger that never seemed serious, until now. Every statement they collected painted a portrait of a man whose obsession with Antonia had metastasized into hatred, a hatred that extended, tragically, to anyone connected to her. Meanwhile, forensics revealed another chilling discovery. A second ignition point had been set on the upper floor. The fire wasn't accidental. It was synchronized, designed to trap anyone inside. The precision suggested knowledge of the home's layout. The investigators realized the suspect had studied the house, memorized escape routes, and chosen the moment with calculated timing. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was premeditated terror. Antonia, still reeling from the loss of her sister and her nieces and nephew, sat with police describing Ali's past behavior. He had sent threatening messages, stalked her social media, and once appeared at her workplace uninvited. But nothing could have prepared her for the sheer scale of his rage now unleashed. Detectives noticed a pattern. He seemed driven not just by revenge, but by a perverse desire to erase anyone who reminded him of the relationship that had ended on his terms.
Then came the breakthrough. Surveillance from a nearby gas station the night before the fire. Ali had purchased multiple containers of accelerant, far more than would be needed for a small project. In his car, police found receipts, a GPS tracker showing repeated loops near the Gawith home, and a notebook detailing timelines. He had been mapping the family's routine for weeks, even noting when the children were asleep, when Bryony would return from work, and when Antonia was away. The cold precision was terrifying. As the net tightened, a new fear emerged. Ali had vanished. His apartment was empty, his car gone, and all attempts to trace him through friends or family led to dead ends. The city was on high alert. Every police checkpoint, every tip line call seemed like it could be the one that caught him, yet the shadow of the suspect loomed, just out of reach. And then came the call from the evidence lab. A small, overlooked object from the scene had DNA, not just Ali's, but someone else's. A second person had been inside the house that night, someone he trusted, someone who might still be free. The revelation sent chills through the detectives. Could Ali have had an accomplice, a partner in terror whose motives were still unknown? As Marcus Hayes stared at the evidence board, mapping the fire, the victims, and the suspect's movements, he realized one terrifying truth. The story they had uncovered so far was only the beginning, and what they hadn't yet discovered could be far worse than the tragedy that had already unfolded. Because when they traced the DNA to its source, it wasn't just shocking, it was personal. The DNA match had shaken Detective Marcus Hayes to his core. The accomplice wasn't a stranger, it was someone inside the Gawith family circle, a close friend of Antonia's, someone who had keys, knew routines, and could move through the house unnoticed. When police brought her in for questioning, the young woman's face was pale, her hands trembling. At first, she claimed ignorance, tears streaming as she insisted she had no idea Ali planned the attack. But inconsistencies in her story began to unravel under scrutiny. Forensics and digital evidence painted a chilling picture. The accomplice had helped Ali gain entry, ensured certain doors were unlocked, and even manipulated the home smoke alarms to delay response. She hadn't started the fire, but she had facilitated it. And her motive? A tangled web of jealousy, resentment, and promises made to a man whose obsession had consumed him entirely. Meanwhile, Ali remained on the run, a ghost in the city. Interpol alerts had been issued, and every lead ended in frustration. Then came a break, a tip from a truck driver in a rural industrial park, reporting a man matching Ali's description trying to sell a large amount of flammable liquid. Officers surrounded the location in silence, weapons drawn, hearts pounding. Ali didn't surrender easily. He had brought a weapon, and when police moved in, a tense standoff erupted. But after hours of negotiation, he finally emerged, disheveled, rage and fear etched into his face. He was taken into custody, his eyes darting to the officers as if daring them to come closer. The trial that followed was one of the most intense in recent memory. Prosecutors painted Ali as a calculating, obsessive man who had meticulously planned and executed the murders, exploiting someone close to the family to achieve his terrifying goal. His accomplice, facing the evidence, pleaded guilty to facilitating the crime and was sentenced accordingly. Family members and the community watched in stunned silence as the full scope of the horror was laid bare. Yet even in conviction, the story left scars. Antonia, who had survived emotionally but not untouched, faced the impossible task of rebuilding her life. Friends and neighbors struggled to comprehend how someone so familiar could unleash such destruction. And Detective Hayes, who had carried the weight of the investigation from the first smoke-filled night, knew that the shadow of this crime would linger in his mind long after the courtroom doors closed. But the darkest twist came after the verdict. Months later, a letter arrived at the police station, unsigned, describing another fire, one that mirrored Ali's methods almost perfectly. Investigators rushed to the scene, hearts sinking. No bodies were found this time, but the message was clear. Obsession and rage had left a mark that could not be easily contained. The thought that someone else might carry forward the same terror shook the community to its core. They thought the nightmare was over. They thought justice had been served. But in crimes like this, the human capacity for vengeance, obsession, and cruelty sometimes stretches beyond the reach of the law. And for those who had lost everything, the question remained: could anyone truly feel safe again? If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.